Okay, thank you to everyone who joined about 10 minutes early and also just sat through my blabber for that. You are real troopers and you've earned the value of this event. So hey, for everyone who has joined, you might not know about Boots to Books. You might have been pushed this direction from the Army Reserve Employment Office as we're working with them. It might be one of our partners. So for a really, really quick overview of what Boots to Books is and what we do, we're a 501c3 nonprofit. Everything we do is completely free and it always will be. We do a lot of things ranging from helping you pay for professional certifications, holding events like this to allow for some self-discovery and to learn from some really great folks who are willing to volunteer their time. We also have hiring fairs with some really awesome companies. Anna is representing one of those great companies right now. And so everything from getting that education initially, doing some self-discovery, to getting employed, Boots to Books is a great resource. We are not the only resource, though. There's a bunch of great companies and nonprofits out there. So if you are having trouble finding the right resource, if you need some help with your transition, or you just want someone to listen to you while you vent about it, please feel free to. We're here to help. Our website is boots2books.com. Stacy, thank you so much for hopping in. Great to have you here as well. We're just kicking off, so your timing is impeccable, my friend. So without further ado, I want to start and just get right into the panelists. Panelists, if you wouldn't mind, before you talk about what you do day to day, the industry overview, advice you have for those breaking in. If you could just give a quick introduction about who you are, what you do now, and your path to this current role. And once again, thank you guys all so much for hopping on. I recognize for a lot of you, especially on the East Coast and Central Time, it's 7 or 6 p.m. On a Friday night. So I want to say that first and foremost, we really, really appreciate your time. But with that being said, Dave, I'm going to kick it off to you. Thanks so much for joining.
Pleasure. Thank you very much, Peter. My name is Dave, everyone. I'm not the least bit in a rush, but I'm going to be polite. And when Peter pulls the cane on me, I will stand down. I speak often to veterans, usually lasts about an hour. So I obviously don't have an hour. So I'm going to speed talk and try not to use contractions and try to give you some information. So when I get up in front of people and speak, and I say, the reason I'm in front of you here today is because when I left the service, I failed miserably and I figured it out. And I want to tell you what I did in hopes that it will help you, not in lecture form, but in Q&A form. And I want to tell you what I did so that you can do the work, but to give you a path, because you can't very well answer the questions or get the answers if you don't have questions. So brief background, my entire family was in the service, mom, dad, aunt, 3 uncles, brother-in-law, me. I come from working class. My father did not graduate high school. He worked in the New York City subway. I'm not in Puerto Rico or on any beach right now. I'm in the middle of New York City, where I'm from. When I wasn't going to go to college, my mother pushed me to go to college. I went, applied to one college, and when I was served in the armor, when I came out of the armor, I said, "What the heck do I do?" Uncle Mike, Uncle Charlie, 6th grade, 8th grade, I had no idea what to do. So it's a question of effort, but of channeling your effort and not working hard as much as working efficiently. And I ended up getting in the back door, not the front door, but the back door at JP Morgan. And I stayed there for 29 years. I simply outworked everybody. I did not have any connections. I did not have any great insight. I don't consider myself particularly tough or intelligent. I simply outworked everybody. And I simply was the first person in, not for the first 3 months, for 29 years. So I talk about create conditions under which good things can happen. What that means is use your time wisely. You're allowed to have some fun. But if you read Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People, it talks about having good conversations with people in which you pay attention to what they are saying and which become you well-read. You grow interest. You try this, you try this, you try this. You have to shake a lot of trees and see what interests you. In your job search, okay, you are selling, not selling in that you're trying to trick somebody. You're presenting gold, which is what you are. You're presenting it to the person who has the ability to hire you. So what you need to do is you need to empower yourself to prepare yourself such that you understand that person, the role, the characteristics of the role, the characteristics of the kind of people who have achieved at that role, the company, the industry, and then you step back and you describe yourself. Now, you may very well have never worked. You may be just coming out of the surface. That's not a liability. That's fantastic. Corporate America wants people who come out of the service, but you need to do the homework, and you need to say, not say here and say, gee, I was on a ship and I did this and that, and I was the best at this and that. You maybe I come from the army, so maybe you say, you know, I was made a squad leader, and my battalion had 9 squads, and in some sort of, you know, rifle qualification or something, we were 8th. Over the next 4 rated periods, I moved us from 6th to 3rd to 2nd to 1st to 1st. And there were 9 squads in the battalion, and it was 400 people or whatever it is. You have to quantify it, because if you were the best and there's 2 people, that's not particularly impressive. So you need to quantify everything. You need to be succinct and to qualify things. So selling says, you look at the prospect, what they need, what they're trying to achieve. You sit back and have a frank conversation with yourself. Do I solve those things? And then you politely but clearly and in an organized fashion lay out, whether it's in an elevator or in an interview or in an informal situation or a formal situation, you lay out how what you have done qualifies, you know, 80% or something of what that person is looking for. And you need to make sure that you've done your homework. I think I call it phase 1, phase 2. Phase 1, in my case, asking really stupid questions because I had no idea what I was doing. I probably looked like a fool, but we get smart. If you don't know something, sit back, study it, get research, ask questions. The very first thing you do when you meet somebody in a networking situation is, may I ask your advice? And in the or during that meeting, you say to them, can you suggest to me what I can read, what I should know, maybe things that you would recommend that I do this and that, and you get to work. Phase one, you're exploring, you're asking. Maybe you're looking at this job, you're talking to people. You're looking at this job, you're talking to people. You're looking at this job, you're talking to people. Phase 2. It's not like in the Terminator when all of a sudden Skynet became self-aware. I don't know how old y'all are, but it's when you phase 2, you sort of know what you want to do. And it's a lot more directed, because you can't say, oh, I want to do this. I want to do this. I want to do this. It's not insincere, but you just don't know. But when you start figuring out what you want to do, then you can channel your efforts. Okay. What you're going to read, books you should read, things that you should know, things you should be conversant about. You can get these people who you can talk to from a number of different veterans organizations or from the alumni association of any school or any organization you've ever been a part of. 3 safe questions. Would you mind telling me your background, your career trajectory, what you've done? That's very educational to me if people will tell me. Can you tell me what your average day is like? In a phase 1 networking environment, if you say to 20 people what your average day is like, well, actually, let's go to 5. If you talk to 5 people, what's your average day is like? What do you like and dislike about your job? You're going to learn quite a bit about that. And if you like it and it seems appealing, you keep going. You go 20, 25 people. In my case, no idea what I wanted to do. I started dumb. I got smarter. I asked better questions. Before you know it, the person said, you got 5 minutes. I want you to talk to Jane. Jane said, you got 5 minutes. I want you to talk to Tom. I got in the back door. That's how I got in the back door, because I had made myself smart. I call it 4 points of orientation. And again, I'm not in a rush, but I got about an hour's worth of stuff, and I think I got 3 minutes left. I would think in terms of any business that I was looking to get into. I would want to know the kinds of jobs and the characteristics of those jobs that place or that business does. I would want to know the kinds of customers and the characteristics of those customers that those people interact with. I would like to know the jargon, the acronyms, the slang, and all that stuff. And the way you get that stuff is by talking to as many people as you possibly can and reading books and reading the paper. If you're going to go into finance, you're reading the Wall Street Journal every day. Whatever time I got up at 4:15 every day for the entire time I worked on the trading desk. Prior planning prevents poor performance. And sometimes people, and when I was on panels, people say, what allowed you to succeed? I was actually a pretty successful salesman on a trading desk. And I said, I do the things that should be done when they should be done without being asked or told to do them. And that's not PhD. That was just common sense that somebody told me back in 1979. And that allowed me to be a success. I said to you 4 things: know the company and the roles, know the customers and their roles, know the jargon, and inexcusable to not know current events. Your attributes as a vet: you have a can-do attitude, You can, and by the way, look at my face. I'm not smiling. I'm violating my own rule. You have to smile. Listen to how I sound. Listen to how I sound. You just sound different. I don't mean smile like you got someone tickling your ear, but I mean like nobody wants to be around a grumpy, stone-faced person. Even if you got your game face on, just remember that. You are unflappable under conditions of stress. You're trained to do that. You're trained to multitask. You're trained to be a team player. Cold, wet, hungry, and tired is very, very basic to you. You are literal. You are sincere. You are team-oriented. Guess what? Sometimes veterans walk in and they give their bone crusher handshake. Don't do it. Don't give a fish. Don't crush anyone's hand. Don't give a fish. Look at my hair. Probably wouldn't have my hair like this if I was getting a job. I grew a ponytail when I got out of service. That's probably not the answer either. Do what you choose to do. Present yourself as you choose to present yourself, but be conscious people judge you, whether it's fair or not. They do. The way you stand. Don't stand up like that. You might have to do that when you're getting inspected, but just be conscious. Some civilians are intimidated by that. You want to present yourself as leadership, confidence. What do we do in the service? From day one, we get broken down. And from day one, we are giving back our power. We think about the person to the left, to the right, in the front and back of us. It's team, it's charge ahead, but not at the expense of the person to the left and right of us. And corporations want that. You can think outside the box. Sometimes military people, they're accused of, you can only follow, a rule, an org chart. You can't really think on your own. Give examples, try to communicate in some way that you are a problem solver. And the modern service is get from here to there with quite a bit of latitude and quite an individuality. I can keep going, but I think it's only fair that I stop. Shall I, Peter? I'll muzzle it.
Dave, can I ask you two quick questions before I kick the cane out in your own words? One, so you've worked in a bunch of different careers in finance. You said you came in the back door at JP Morgan. If you could give a quick overview of the different roles you did in financial services and just what each really entailed and you enjoyed about them. And then advice for someone if they were looking to break into financial services specifically. I know it'll differ by role, but a broad overview of some things they can do. I know the Wall Street Journal, keeping up with current events, probably turning on notifications from Bloomberg, because that'll give you the notifications right on your phone. But I guess an overview of the roles and then a little bit of advice if you don't mind.
Yeah, and actually, some people asking me these days, because they did do a whole bunch of speaking at JP Morgan and career advice, they said, what would you recommend I get into these days? Well, private equity is pretty difficult to get into and you can make a ton of money and it comes and goes. I think two businesses within finance, within investments that are bursting and going forward, besides things like compliance and know your client and money laundering and a ton of compliance roles, a ton. Firms are dying to hire, people in those kinds of roles who can be organized and who can be dependable with sensitive information. But really, it's wealth management on an institutional basis and on a retail basis. So my first job out of the Army was in 100% commission, 100% cold call, retail, financial sales. The good thing about that is if you're honest and you self-educate, because I studied at night and within about 2 years, I probably had read more books and had more degree certifications than people in the office for 10 years because I just was hungry and poor. But in that business, you're calling people up. You have to educate yourself, and some people will slam the door, use naughty words or lie or this or that, but really people do kind of need to have their money managed because it's more complicated. People are living longer and no one has a pension. Institutional wealth management is not something I've ever done, but it's something that's got a similar kind of a skill set. But you're speaking to people like maybe a union or a state fund or something that's managing money for a group of people. It's just not a ton of material to learn. And companies are dying to expand in both of those areas. What I did for the majority of my career, Peter, actually was on a trading floor for 24 years. And that's a lot of naughty words and cursing, and it's pretty nasty. It has evolved. A lot of it is online these days and a lot of it's quantitative. I don't think it would be polite of me to take the time to explain for someone to get into that, but firms are hiring people. But I think the first things I said is retail, financial, or investment management, which actually I retired from JP Morgan, and that's what I'm doing right now. I do two things. I'm an investment advisor and I cold call to get jobs for veterans. I hope I answered your question. If someone wants to break into those things, it's really self-education, but it's a pretty low hurdle of what degree you have to have or what qualifications you have to have. You really just have to be willing to suck it up and work through the plan. And that's how it usually is with lots of sales programs, but there's a great need for these jobs. Did I answer your question, or was that too all of it?
Yeah, no, that was a great answer. And I think, the overarching thing you highlighted of doing your research and upskilling in the context of the role you want. So like even, I mean, financials too, now you don't need necessarily a firm sponsor to go take like the SIE, right? So FINRA has all the qualification exams. You can go take the baseline one, security industry essentials, without being in a bank or anything like that. And that'll give, there's a lot better ways to learn, but that'll at least give a certificate showing that you've gone out and taken this test and learned and done it in a proctored environment. But I really do like the way you put that is, it's a function of how hard you're willing to work and how much research you're willing to put in to land that dream role.
People should feel good, because if you wanted to be a botanist or a doctor, you have to go to medical school. You just have to be honest and be willing to work hard and have a thick skin. You don't need a ton of qualifications. You just need grit to get into the financial services business. Like you really don't need a lot of qualifications. You just have to work hard. I think when I think of military people, I think it's sales and supervision in a manufacturing situation. Those are like the two categories of jobs we are just born to do. I'm in no rush at all, but I don't want to be a jerk to everybody else, because it looks like a fantastic panel.
Definitely. I'm gonna kick it off. But Dave, if people want to get in touch with you, if they want to check out your work, is there anything you want to shout out before I kick it off to the amazing Katie?
Would you mind if they go through you and you check with me? Would that
Definitely.
be okay?
Perfect. Yeah. If you
Thank
reach out to Boots to Books, if you're interested in finance, learning more about the industry or Dave's path, and we'd be happy to make the connection, given it's okay with Dave.
And I'm open to having another session if there's interest.
Awesome. Hey, thank you so much for coming.
I'm not in such a rush. I hope I wasn't rude, everybody. I tried to be polite.
No, that was perfect. Thank you so much, Dave. I really appreciate the time. Awesome.
Have a good trip, Christy.
Yeah, Christy's going to Mexico, guys.
Okay, bye-bye.
So next up, we have the amazing Katie Travis. Katie, I'd love to just kick it off to you, get a little bit of introduction, hear about what you do, what you like about it, and how you got to where you are now.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm going to share my screen here.
That's a good looking slide.
Oh, thank you so much. And if at any time anyone has questions they want to put in the chat, please interrupt me, because I can't see the chat right now. But I'm happy to answer.
For questions, I'm actually really happy you said that. Sorry to interrupt you as well. So I'm going to put an email in the chat. So we had Zoom bombers in December, wildness. So there's been a disablement of the chat. In the event somebody bombs our Zoom again, it's sad, but we can't have nice things. However, if people do have questions, please send them to the email I just put in the chat. It's Tom at our website, boots2books.com. Tom will graciously interrupt us and shoot the questions over. So we do want your questions. We'd love to have them, but just shoot them over to that email. But Katie, so sorry, go right ahead.
No problem. No problem. My name is Katie Travis, and I own Katie Travis Consulting, and I'm also the proud wife of a veteran. My husband was a tomb guard at Arlington Cemetery, and I'm also a new ambassador for Boots to Books. I love your mission, and I'm very excited to help spread the word to our military and veterans. And so I'm just going to tell you a little bit about my background and what I do now. And if you have any questions, I'm ready to answer them. So first of all, my company, Katie Travis Consulting, gives career coaching, and we write human-focused resumes for all career fields, but transitioning military, veterans, and transitioning teachers are my specialty. Before starting my business, I was a Spanish teacher for 18 years. So I threw a couple pictures in there so you could see.
Kristen, if you need some a connection here to get ready for your trip.
Oh, is someone going somewhere cool?
Christy to Mexico soon, but
oh, nice. So when I was a teacher, I was called Profe, and I taught for 18 years. And I was recently called an adult guidance counselor, which I loved. So I thought, I'll throw that in there. I thought I was going to retire from teaching, but life has a funny way of surprising you, right? And let's see. So at the age of 40, I started looking for a job outside of teaching. And I dove headfirst into figuring out what makes a good resume. How do you get interviews? How do you interview? You know, as a teacher does, if you're interested in something, you just go all out, right? So that's what I did. And my friends started asking me for help with their resumes, and then people that I didn't even know were reaching out. And so that's kind of how Katie Travis Consulting was born. Let's see. So if you're in the process of looking for a job or changing careers, I understand how overwhelming it can be. And I am here to support you if you want to reach out. I'm on all of the social media and everything. Let me tell you about my day-to-day activities. If you're looking to go into resume writing, so most of my time is spent designing, writing resumes, writing cover letters, and also like making edits after my clients check the work and they send back feedback. I also offer consulting services. We work on mindset development, and a big thing that we work on is imposter syndrome, feeling like you can't do something different, or you're not good, or you're a fake. We work on that because mindset is everything. Once you decide that you can do it, you've got it. That's half the battle. Talking about personal branding and how you put yourself out there, how like the gentleman previous to me was talking about, career coaching, deciding which way to go, interview prep and negotiation tactics. I spend a lot of time communicating with clients, going back and forth in emails, messages, also keeping up social media. And I put a little note on there. Job Seekers Unite is a Facebook group that we started just a few months ago, and I offer insider tips. So if you are interested, you can find that on Facebook, Job Seekers Unite. It's free. Also keeping up with like the bookkeeping and researching latest trends in career development. And let's see. I wanted to share another thing that I feel very passionate about, and that is it doesn't matter your education or your previous work experience, you have options. Please believe me when I say I've helped many, many people that you would maybe meet them and think, oh, well, how could they get a good job? It is possible. And please don't settle. Please don't settle. It's never too late also to design a life that you love. So if you're in a job situation that you don't love, you know, you can make the choice to change it. And then the last thing I have for you is my email address is katie@katietravisconsulting.com. You can find me on these social media areas. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Definitely, Katie. You know, and I think something I really liked on that past slide was, you know, it said something along the lines of changing jobs is really hard, but you know, it's even worse, regret. Of not doing what you want to do because you think it's going to be too hard, or you're just, you know, paralyzed by fear or the difficulty that may lay ahead. But I really agree with what you said, is that anything really is possible, as corny as it may sound. Obviously, as Dave alluded to, it takes a lot of work. But a question I had for you is, I guess twofold. One is, you know, what's one of the bigger industry transitions you've seen done successfully? And then another one is, what are some common pitfalls you see folks come into when they come to you for resume advice that they may have fallen into?
Ooh, that's good. Okay, I'm gonna quit sharing my screen now, and there we go. Okay, so the biggest transitions that I've seen, that was the first question, right? I'm finding you on the panel here. There you are. Okay, so I have helped a lot of military transition into careers where they're like in the corporate world, in Fortune 500 companies. And these would be people that do not have a college degree, didn't think it was possible to land a job that pays well and, you know, has some clout to it. So that's one of my favorite things, is when I'm able to help our veterans find work that they love, and just that it's like a dream come true to them. You know what I mean? Like, also same thing with my teachers. Shout out to my teachers. Yeah, whoop, whoop. Yeah, they're going through a hard time right now. And so when they share with me what they're going through, and then when they sign their offer and their life changes like completely, it is amazing. It's so fulfilling, and it's what makes me love my work now.
Awesome. It's amazing.
And I forgot the other question, Peter. Can you
I was
repeat?
going to reiterate. Yeah, no, definitely. And I can definitely resonate with that. Getting out of the service and getting into a job, I mean, whatever it is, regardless of the work that you're doing, just getting that next role, I think is really validating. And it casts aside a lot of the fears people have of, can I get out and do something great? Or can I get out and even work another job? And the answer is yes, you definitely can. The second question was, what are some of the common resume pitfalls you've seen people come to you with and that you've had to really start out with?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. Number one, you don't want to put a picture on your resume. I see a lot of people send me their resumes and I'm like, oh no, that's one. You do not have to put your street address on there. Just city, state is great. Okay. If you're willing to relocate, you can put that on there too. No references, please. Don't even say like references available. No, that's old school. It's gonna, Christy, you put that on yours?
No, I was agreeing with everything you said.
Oh,
like,
okay, good,
completely. I'm like, yes. Oh, everything Katie says, take notes.
Yeah. Oh, thanks. And then the other thing is the objective statement, like, I'm looking for this type of a job. That's old school too. You want to have a profile summary at the top that is basically highlighting why you're the best person for the job. How are you going to do it better, faster, more efficiently, whatever? That's where you're going to stand out first off on your resume. You want to have a modern format, a template that's looking like, those are off the top of my head.
No, that was perfect. You know what I really liked is as you said, each of the recruiters in the room was nodding or throwing thumbs up. So definitely struck true. Well, Katie, thank you so much. I really appreciate you joining. Your LinkedIn is in the chat. And so please connect, please follow Katie Travis Consulting, Job Seekers Unite on Facebook.
Yep.
Awesome.
It's so nice to meet you all. Thank you so much for having me. And I am going to get going because I have a toddler to get to bed. So
reasonable. Thank you so much for your time.
Feel free to connect. Awesome. Have a great night.
Great. Hey, sweet. So up next, we have the amazing Anna Crow. Anna's worked with Boots to Books for a little bit now. She's actually come to some of our events and recruited from the military community. She's been a really great supporter. So without further ado, Anna, I'll kick it off to you. Hear a little about who you are, what you do, and advice for those looking at HR roles, recruiting in general. And
Yeah, no, of course. I'm happy to provide some insight. And too bad Katie hopped off, because I was going to say I want to link up with her because we're definitely looking for a lot of what she really described. She's helping people to change. So first, I'll talk a little bit about myself. My name is Anna Crow, and I am an early careers recruiter with Publicis Media. We are a multimedia marketing and advertising company. We are very large. We have about 100,000 employees all over the world under our parent group, Publicis Group. So we're really, really proud to be all over the world, everywhere except for Antarctica. So a little bit about me, my journey. If you can not tell, I am a bit of a younger professional myself, newer to my career. And the way that I stumbled into HR and recruiting was very much by chance. Initially went to community college out of high school, was not sure what I wanted to do, did not have a ton of direction in that sense. And then I started to figure out that I felt like I was a very communicative, people-oriented person. So I went that route when I went to my 4-year university, eventually at UIC, studied communications and psychology. I was really interested in just behavior and mindset. which is very ironic because when I graduated, I found myself in a very imposter syndrome-y like headspace. Although I had done internships and although I had had plenty of, classroom experience and a degree and all of that jazz, I just still felt like wherever I went, I wasn't quite sure if I knew what I was doing. So I was very lucky to have a mentor push me or encourage me, I guess I'll say, to go over to a recruiting event with my current company, Publicis Media. It was one of the first ones like out of the pandemic. So I was extra nervous because I hadn't seen people in forever. And they were just so conversational and kind, very much so looking into what my current skill set is rather than trying to fit me into a box. So what they sort of came out to realize was that I might be a great fit for recruiting. And I have to agree now that I've been in the role for almost 2 years that it's meant to be. I really enjoy helping people receive jobs in media. I also loved how Katie touched on both veterans and teachers, because that we get a lot of those applications as well, just trying to understand themselves how they can cater what their previous experience was to be relevant to the media industry. So that kind of allows me to segue into, what kind of opportunities we offer and advice that I have around securing an associate or intern position. So at Publicis Media, we focus more so on the strategy, investment, data analytics side of advertising. So a lot of the time when you think about advertising, you're thinking about creative campaigning. And while it is somewhat of that, you're also doing a lot of media math and Excel related tasks, a lot of data analytics and so forth. So something that you want to keep in mind. I want to break it down into 2 sectors because otherwise I'd keep you guys here for a really long time. So we hire media planners and we hire media buyers. So you can find yourself in a ton of different departments. You think video, audio, digital, out of home, which is more like print, advertising, digital, social, paid search, SEO, the list goes on. So there's a ton of different departments, obviously. So with that said, kind of hard to give like a concise day-to-day. So as far as the media planning side, what you're doing is you are essentially deciding, okay, who, what, where, when, why is this advertising going out? And you're having to provide value insights to your client regularly, manage competitor insights to ensure that, you're meeting ROI, we're beating the competitor, and so on. And then on the media buying side, you're dealing more closely with the budget side of the campaign. So making sure that there's ROI, we're optimizing the budget, again, analyzing competitor insights and their budget usage and so forth. So in a nutshell, that's what we're looking for. That's what we hire for in the entry level. And you might think like, I have no idea what I could have done to be in either of those positions with my previous military experience. This is actually something that I personally do not have any previous military experience, I will divulge, but I currently have friends who are in the military who have expressed to me that, hey, when I come out of this, I'm not really sure how I'm gonna frame my experience. So I am here to tell you that the most important thing when you're applying to a role that you don't have prior experience to, and keep in mind it's entry level, so you're not really supposed to, is you can really pull from your transferable skills. In pretty much every job that you could possibly have, you can lean into things that you've learned things that you've picked up from mentors, skills that you've adapted to, systems that you've used. So definitely don't shy away from touching on what you've done, even if it doesn't relate to media in the slightest, because you might be surprised at how it actually does. I think another piece of advice that I want to offer is take advantage of all networking opportunities and just don't be afraid. Jump in. Like I said, I was very, very nervous to go to the Publicis Media recruiting event out of COVID, and it has been the biggest blessing in my life so far that I showed up at that event, and that I'm able to practice this initiative, that I'm able to also just help mentor and guide others who are interested in getting in this industry. So yeah, and also, if anybody has any questions about like special resources that we offer, we have a ton of those. One of them I would really love to touch on if I had enough time is our media training program. So if you're interested in hearing about that, please, please, please either reach out to Peter via that link that he sent, or I'm about to post my email, my LinkedIn, and an associate job posting. So your resources are all there.
Awesome, Anna. Thank you so much. And I think, one of the big things you highlighted is, it can be somewhat nerve wracking, especially going to networking events, putting yourself out there and trying to go meet new people, especially in the context of, hey, I'm looking for a role and I might not have experience directly in that role. But obviously it worked out 2 years later, here you are, and, in a recruiting role now on the opposite side of the table. But it does take that sometimes jumping into the deep end, kind of going into the dark. And is it okay if I ask you a question from the audience? It's about the recruiting process.
Yes, please do.
So this individual reached out, they identified as non-binary, their chosen name is different than their legal name. They use the they, them pronouns. And they want to know how much that can affect the hiring and interviewing process. And if that's something that's okay to bring up at the beginning.
That does not affect the process at all. We highly encourage you to identify as you see fit, please.
Definitely. Yeah. And I think, that you find a great company like Publicis and you find a great recruiter like Anna, Christy, or Lindsay, that won't affect the process, and people will embrace you for who you are.
No, yeah, absolutely not. We are not bias hiring over here. Trust in that. So
Awesome. Sweet. Thank you so much, Anna. I really appreciate your time, and I hope we have a hiring fair later in March. I hope to see you there again. And Publicis.
oh yeah. Yeah, I will definitely be there. I'm hoping just to stay on for a little bit longer. I have to jump at 7, but I'd love to stay and support everybody else. So hopefully I'll hear from some of you later on.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, thanks so much, Anna.
Thanks.
So for the panelists, just to give you an overview of the order, once again, I know we talked about it at the beginning. I have Michael next, then Lisa, Nick, Lindsay, and Christy. I just got a HR specific question to the individual that emailed that to Tom. No, it will be asked. It's going to be asked to Lindsay and Christy, our amazing recruiters that are left on the panel. Anna, you got one of the recruiter questions and they're going to get the other one. But thank you so much. I really appreciate your time, you coming on, and just your support for the military community. It's been really great.
Thank you.
So coming up next, we have the amazing Michael, who was actually on an event with me, 2 weeks ago? Doing a certification giveaway?
Yeah, we were doing. Yeah, I think we did a live event 2 weeks ago. Yeah.
I was gonna say, it feels like just yesterday we were in front of a camera and a microphone.
Time flies, man. Time flies.
Hey,
All right.
You.
Perfect. All right. Hey, Peter, Boost the Books, really appreciate you having me back here. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Michael Referzo. I am working at TCM Security. It's a cybersecurity company. And the focus of what I do there is project management and curriculum development. I also work for Duo Coach as a certified project trainer. So I help train project managers. And lastly, I am the chapter director for Washington State for Raices Cyber Organization, which is a cybersecurity organization that wants to promote and really drive the Hispanic community to get more into the technical field, IT, cybersecurity. So that's just a very quick background about myself. I guess one thing I did leave out is I'm still active duty military. I retire this year in October, and then I'll transition into a civilian career at some juncture. I'm not sure when, but we'll figure that out, I guess. To cover some of the things that you wanted us to talk about, what do I do for a day-to-day? So at TCM Security, as the project manager and curriculum developer, as the project management side of the house, we are always told in the military, you are a project manager. Absolutely, you are. What I've found is that is a true statement and a false statement at the same time. It's true. We 100% have project management skills that are transferable. We know how to build a watch bill. We can build a fire team. We can organize. We can get things put together, and we can plan a project from start to finish. The one thing that you don't have is the technical terminology in order to translate that into a civilian career. Going into a project management job for the first time with TCM, I am lucky that I was able to go through DO Coach's certification process and earn my certified project officer certification that taught me those valuable civilian terminology words. If I didn't have those, I would not have been successful at all. But since I did have that, I was able to successfully complete an entire project with TCM Security, and I also supported them with curriculum development. Essentially, what my day-to-day for that piece was, I built a JTA, or what's called a job task analysis, for a penetration tester, which in the cybersecurity world, it is someone who assesses the survivability of a network from a security standpoint, digital side of the house. When I put that thing together for them, it was so that we can submit it to the Department of Defense for their COOL certifications. Now, for those of you that may or may not know what that is, essentially it is a way for the DoD, all the armed branches of service, to pay for a certification for the service member so that they can take that certification while they're still active duty, and it aligns with their MOS or NEC. The other side of my house, the certified project trainer side, really, that's about as self-explanatory as it can get. I help train project managers. And then lastly, as a chapter director for Washington State, really it is just raising awareness, working K through 12 education, making sure that we get with local organizations, businesses, to really promote the STEM type job fields at a very early age, to really promote that awareness and make sure that they understand when they grow up, all those kids going through school, that you can do something other than a trade school or going work at a restaurant. There's a ton of different availability out there for you, especially in the IT and cybersecurity field. I think the latest report that we just saw said there were 50,000 open jobs in the cybersecurity field alone, which is massive. So that's kind of the day-to-day. That's what I do in each one of those different positions. The next question you had was, how did I get those jobs? LinkedIn. And I'm going to offer a challenge, Peter. I'm going to kind of steal the show for just a hot minute here. Let's see, we had about 77 people inside the chat here. If everyone in the chat connects with me on LinkedIn, and if you are interested in project management, if you send me a message specifically saying you are interested in project management, I am going to give you a certified project officer certification course and the certification at no cost to you. No, Peter, I did not tell you about this, and I see the look of shock on your face.
I love it.
So, and that's just my way of giving back to the military community.
Hey, just got a question, actually. Funny timing. You should say that, from John Rummel. John said, for the project management professional in the chat, not PMP, but the professional working within project management, appreciate any recommendations on certifications beyond the PMP and education. That literally came in 1 minute prior to you saying that, John.
There it is. No, absolutely. PMP is worldwide recognized nationally. The certified project officer certification, and really the work that's being done by DO Coach, they're trying to break the mold. PMP really focuses on book knowledge, whereas the certified project officer and then the certification that I hold as well, which is a certified project director, which means I can lead programs that have smaller projects in them. We focus on those actual skills and the knowledge that you need in order for you to lead a successful project. Book knowledge is great. It allows you to go inside, have a great resume, be able to talk to those skills. However, just because you have that book knowledge doesn't mean you have the experience behind it. And we really focus on making sure that we can take your current skills that you have in the military, transfer those into the civilian sector, and then give you those civilian terms that you need to use and learn so that you can become successful. Because I'll be honest, the first time when I led my project, I didn't understand how to balance a budget. I didn't even know that that was a thing, because in the military, we have, a soldier, a sailor, an airman, a Marine. We have that asset, that available resource, but we don't worry about how long we should charge for their hours because they're already getting paid. Civilian companies really care about that. So having that industry experience already and then just transferring it over really helps out a lot. So that's really why I wanted to, make this opportunity available to everyone. So I see my computer is going wild right now. So I promise I'm going to get to you whenever I go on mute here, but expect that to come across at least today. And of course, if anyone has any questions, if anyone has any type of, hey, how'd you do this? Give me some specifics. Shoot me a message on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Michael, I really appreciate you coming in and surprising me with that and surprising the audience. It's a pretty great offer. So for those interested in project management, one, I would definitely connect with Michael, both on the personal branding and the project management side. And also for this CPO certification that he just mentioned. And Michael, one last question before you hop off, I guess twofold, or before we hand it off. Did you have a background in cybersecurity in the military? How did that benefit you moving into a project management role at a security company? And then could you just reiterate what you said for the CPO one more time in case anybody stepped away from their computer at the most inopportune time?
Yeah, absolutely. So for your first question, how did I get with the cybersecurity company? Really, it was through LinkedIn. It was networking. And I will tell you, any of the recruiters that are sitting in here right now, they're listening. I know that they're going to echo the exact same thing. Network on LinkedIn. That is going to be one of the biggest things that you can do, is putting yourself out there and starting your journey as early as you can. I started about 2 years ago on LinkedIn, and I'm at the point where I am now, but it took 2 years. It takes time. And really not just connecting randomly with other service members, it's really trying to do targeted networking within the industry you're trying to get into. You had mentioned it. I didn't really speak about it a whole lot. I do have a YouTube channel that's dedicated to building your own LinkedIn profile. I set that up specifically because I was doing one-on-ones, and it's great. But the problem with one-on-ones is it's not at scale. So I developed a YouTube channel, put in there specific videos on how to build your profile top to bottom, start to finish. I know recruiters, you're probably going to kill me. I apologize. I don't mean to steal business. It was put in there to help service members transition out of the military. Not everyone has the availability to hire a recruiter or a personal brand coach. And I wanted to make sure that that opportunity was available to everyone and really kind of give you some focus on where you should start. Now, I have partnered up with CareerFlow, and they're a company that helps, they built an extension on Google that allows you to see your profile and build it with a wizard. Amazing tool. Watch the videos. I guarantee you're going to increase your networking about tenfold easily. But I don't want to steal from the rest of the recruiters in the room. And this second question that you have for me, Peter, remind me, because I went off on a tangent.
Yeah, could you just reiterate the details for the CPO cert you surprised us with, just in case anyone missed it?
Absolutely. So if now I see 83 people in here. So if everyone inside of today's webinar connects with me on LinkedIn, and if you're interested in project management, send me a message on LinkedIn specifically saying, I'm interested in project management. I am going to get with you and I am going to give you a certified project officer certification course and the certification at no cost to you. That's about a $400 value from DOL Coach that they just kind of gave me free reign to do what I want. So
Oh, that's their first mistake. No, I'm just kidding.
absolutely. Oh, when you send me your message on LinkedIn, send me your email address, your personal email address. That way I can send this stuff to you.
Does that go for panelists as well?
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, yes, absolutely.
This guy had to get on the
Yeah,
band.
wait, Michael, have you shared LinkedIn profile yet? As
I will. Oh, there we go. There we go. Thanks, Peter.
perfect.
Yep. So, hey, Michael's LinkedIn just went in the chat. I would strongly recommend taking him up on that recommendation. There's a couple more questions for Michael in the chat, but I'm going to move on in the interest of time. If you have a question for Michael, is it okay if they connect with you and reach out with their questions as well?
100% they should.
Amazing. Sweet. Hey, thank you so much, man. You never fail to over deliver. It's really great to have you. I appreciate your time so much. I know you're a busy guy.
Absolutely, man. My pleasure.
Thank you so much. All right. Moving on. Without further ado, Lisa, thank you so much for joining us today. I'd love to just hear a little bit about you, how you got to where you are now, what your day-to-day looks like, anything else you deem pertinent for the job seekers in the room. Thanks so much for joining.
Sure. No, my pleasure. Good evening, everyone. I feel like the outsider here because I don't know anybody, but I'm here just to support.
Yeah.
I don't have any freebies. I mean, I have a recommendation for a book and I'm happy to buy that book for anybody that wants it, but I'm just trying to pay it back. I had a great 32-year career in the U.S. Army. The first 4 were on active duty, and then I went to the Army Reserve, which was really good to me. And I left there in 2020. I feel bad for some of the folks. If we're at the point we're at with the questions right now from the audience, I feel as though you haven't had good leaders, because a lot of this stuff should have been handled with your leadership. Not just looking at tomorrow and what the Army's needs were of you, but looking at you as a person and saying, someday, and that should have started the day you joined the service. So I regret that we're here right now, but I put myself out there. I'm not going to do the LinkedIn thing. You can just email me directly. And it's just lisa.dumont@gmail.com. I'm happy to mentor, chat with, support you guys in any way. I never used a recruiter although, being an Army reservist, I was able to have my professional career somewhat and serve in the Army Reserve. So a little different than the active duty folks, but I never used a recruiter. I did use a resume writer, and I go to them every couple of years just because I know that they are the experts, and so they help me keep that ship shape. But I never felt like I had to use a recruiter to jump in. So day to day, I am a coach for executives, and I teach them how to interface and engage nicely with frontline staff. As some of the panelists have already identified, just because you have a degree and you have a little experience doesn't mean that you can navigate the real world. And so I coach those senior leaders to go out and have real conversations with frontline staff in order to increase employee engagement, because we want our employees in the front line and our local leaders to really own their workspace and to make sure that workspace is safe. And to make sure it's productive and to make sure that they feel relevant. Because if you don't feel relevant in an organization, you're probably not going to stick around, and you're absolutely not going to apply yourself while you're looking for somewhere else to go. So I am in the healthcare industry. I was a medical service corps officer. And so that naturally fit nice for me, but I can tell you that has very little to do with what I do right now as a senior leader coach. And what I would like to say about that is this. So when I entered into the health system here where I live, it became painfully apparent really quickly that we in the service are very fortunate, because the first thing the services do is train us to be leaders. From day one, you're either a squad leader or you're helping out and you're learning how to lead, even though it's your peers, right? But in the private sector, they don't have that opportunity. They don't have that luxury. You come to them trained in a job. And if you don't have those leadership skills, I know the system, and I hope there's no one on here, but well, I say it all the time. They need a leadership development program and they don't have it. So you guys that are leaving the service, you really have a great skill set that you're starting out with that a lot of your peers are not going to have, because the services recognize the importance of those leadership skills, and they teach us to be leaders before they make us into whatever it is, you know, the job that we're going to have. So just keep that in the back of your mind, because you know, you might have lots of certificates, you might have lots of degrees, but those power skills, which used to be the soft skills, go a long way in the private and not-for-profit and public sector that you're going to jump into. Let me see. Also, my journey. So I went through ROTC. I graduated. I hadn't done a resume or anything. I got lucky and got active duty, thank goodness, because then I had a job coming out of college. I did that for 4 years and started having children. And I didn't want, you know, a family where my husband and I were both working and we were kind of passing in the night, right? So I left my job and joined the Army Reserve, but it was very good to me. It allowed me to be a school nurse for a while. It allowed me to work for FEMA for about 12 years. It allowed me to jump out and then jump back into the workforce. I worked for the Corps of Engineers here where I live. And then now when I retired, I'm able to work at the local health system. So that's my journey. I know it's kind of unique, but I think it's important in understanding kind of my advice for you guys, which is the last thing that was asked of me. So the first thing is get your priorities straight for your life before you pick that place in that job. You know, to chase a job or to chase a location and not really have thought deeply about what it is you want to do on the weekends, or what you want your family to look like, how you want to raise your family, what hobbies you want to have. All that stuff goes into who you are and who you should and could be. There's a great book. I'm going through it now for the second time because we're always redesigning our lives. We really are. And it's called Designing Your Life. It's by Bill Burnett and Dave Evans. And they just walk you through like, hey, before, you know, just because you think you want to do this, sit back and think about these other things before you jump in. And you're at a great position to do that, you know, to step back and take your time. And so I recommend that you guys do that. While you're doing that, make sure you're chasing your dream and your future, because I don't want to be the party pooper, but it sounds nice to have a lot of those certificates and a lot of those degrees, but I found myself chasing things in the Army that other people wanted, and I thought I wanted them too, and it turns out I really didn't, you know. But and is it a bad thing? No, because it probably makes you a better person for the things that you pursue. But really sit back and make sure it's your dream that you're chasing. You know, when I was little, I wanted to be a florist. And I ended up joining the Army, you know, so who knows? I mean, I might end up there someday, but just make sure you're chasing your dream. I'm going to encourage you to know your own worth, but be prepared to prove it when you go out into the job sector and work your way around an organization, and then be prepared to work your way up. You know, coming into Valley Health here, I was happy to come in without a recruiter, with just my resume, get an interview, chat with the team, and be hired into the position that I was in, because of all those other things in life that it afforded me. But just be ready to jump in and then earn it every day, as we always say. I would also say, you know, you can have it all, and this is more of a life lesson than a career lesson, but you just can't have it all at the same time. So in my career, I would often go visit units, and they wanted to know, how do you do it? You know, how do I do what? like, you know, I can only do 3 things at one time. And so, well, how do you have kids and how do you have a family? What's the silver bullet? There's not a silver bullet. You guys got to decide what your priorities are, and then make sure that you're chasing those. But you just can't have it all at one time. You know, a job and you know, be at home with your family and make lots of money. And I would submit that when you do that, designing your life, that money piece might not be, well, maybe it is now, but at some point it might not be the most important thing. So think about that when you're looking at these jobs. So know your craft and hold yourself accountable for staying current in that craft. So we have some folks talking about certifications. You have to know your craft. Don't depend on anybody else to tell you, hey, you need to go do this. That's the research that you need to do as a professional. Know your craft and then know what you need to do to stay current in it. Now, a lot of organizations, our health system, they offer a lot of educational assistance, certification assistance, but nobody, I don't see anybody over there, you know, prodding folks to go spend that money. You've got to know which path to take. I've already addressed kind of staying sharp on your power skills. You know, when I went into the system, I was such an anomaly as a military person, and you really, I mean, I found myself kind of ratcheting back and really leaning on those power skills rather than the things, you know, that I could tell them that I've done. I just have to prove that, but that has to do with those power skills, knowing when to speak and you know, when to offer the things about yourself when it's appropriate, and be ready for opportunities. They come all the time. You'll be amazed, I think, if you're just starting this journey, how many opportunities are going to come your way. And you might think you've missed it, or it's going to come around again. They really do. There are a lot of opportunities out there. So just try to be ready for them when they come, that when they do, you're ready to throw your hat in the ring. And then my last piece of advice is really a request. When you go out there, please represent us well. It's really hard. Again, being an anomaly, if there's one other or two other people in the organization that aren't representing the military well, it's going to make it hard for the rest of us. So, you know, just go out there and be the best that you can be, and represent us and show them that we, you know, this is the old one, but we do more before 9 o'clock than most people do all day, and still do. You know, when you retire, you still would do that. So that's what I have for you tonight. My email address is lisa.dumont, DOUMONT @gmail.com. I'm happy to chat with anybody to help you, you know, talk about my journey some more. And I also stand by to support Boots to Books in any way that I can. Yeah.
Lisa, thank you so much. That's a really, I mean, I think a lot of the things you touched on are so easily passed over when they really shouldn't be in the career journey of thinking about your family, your life, things that make you happy, right? We work to empower our lives. We don't live to work. Although some people might be misconstrued on that for a little bit, although eventually the values will come back centered. One question we got for you was, are there any, and by the way, if you send a question in, it will get answered. And we've got a pretty awesome group rounding it out. But a question I got for you is, are there any skills that we have in the military? And the answer is definitely yes, but I'm curious which ones. Are there any skills that we have in the military that would cross over to FEMA?
Oh my gosh, I was a logistician for FEMA. Yeah, so any logistics, like, and I wasn't, you know, I wasn't like a supply sergeant. I was I supervised, an S4 shop, if you will, and I don't know if that translates to the services, but absolutely. And you know, just now at the system I work at, I was in a meeting. They turned to me and they said, "Hey," and I'm a consultant over there. I don't work full-time over there. I left full-time there because I said, I can't do this. I just can't be in an office 40 hours a week because, and so when I left, they said, what do we need what do we need you to do for us? And I told them, and then they hired me to do it. And I do it in like a quarter of the time. But they turned to me the other day and they said, hey, we got a job for you. And essentially, you know what it is? It's a commander's inquiry. They wanted me to go out and ask questions about a certain misstep in communication. And I thought immediately about, and I hope this resonates with folks, CCIRs, Commander's Critical Information Requirements. And they looked at me, you know, like I had three heads, but that's exactly what it is. What does the boss need to know? And when do they need to know it, right? And when do I need to go knock on the tent, i.e. like text or email or call the boss? Or when can I wait 4 hours? But we have to pass that information. And I think, you know, I find in the private sector, there's not this hurry to, Lisa's opinion, to develop the folks around you, because it's a little more competitive. Like before, it was like, hey, you guys all got to replace me. If I don't show up tomorrow, this thing needs to keep moving. I don't see that as much. So people are a little more leery of sharing information, but I don't know if that gives you some insight. So communication, logistics, we do that stuff really well. And we usually have pretty good processes and SOPs. So save all your SOPs because you're going to use them again. They're just going to be in other, you know, another language, right? In civilian language. Logistics, leadership is huge. You know, having very frank conversations with people. I don't see a lot of that. And so they really like to sit down and, you know, when you tell somebody, have they told you what they expect of you? And the employee's like, no. Okay, how can you succeed if your boss hasn't told you what the expectations are? And it's all, you know, it's mechanical. It's on this evaluation that goes through HR. But so then I said, well, you know, you have expectations of your boss as well, right? And I feel like we do that stuff really well in the service. And I hope you guys do too. And those aren't bad words, right? Expectations aren't supposed to be bad words. Those are things that I need to know to succeed. So we have lots of things, I think, and I'm happy to, you know, chat more with somebody if they wanted to, you know, to dive in. Yeah.
Awesome. Lisa, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you coming on and sharing some of your expertise.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I put your email in the chat. If you guys want to reach out, chat more with Lisa, learn more about FEMA, her amazing career journey, please don't hesitate. The last three speakers we have tonight, we're rounding it out strong. We've got Nick, who is in attorneys in law. We've got Lindsay. We've got Christy, two recruiters who both work at really awesome companies who have been supportive of Boots to Books. I want to hit really quickly, Nick, before I kick it off to you, and I really appreciate you sticking on. I know your hours are usually billable, and this is one of the ones that's not. So thanks for giving us a free one. Russ asked if any panelists could speak to pay expectations in reference to degrees. So no degree, associates, bachelor's, master's. You know, and I'd say that's really industry dependent. And the reason I say that, Russ, is because I've seen software engineers with no college who have a great portfolio and can code with the best of them, make $250,000 a year. And I've seen people with master's degrees get jobs that would be categorized in the bachelor's category for you. I'd say it really depends on two things. One is your industry, and two is your proficiency at whatever role you're looking for. So it's really dependent and subjective. I would say really the most important thing there, especially because it looks like it's broken out by education level, is backwards plan, right? If you're going to get a master's degree, get a master's degree. And unless you're just wildly interested in the topic and you want to like dive deep into, you know, American history, get a degree in something that's going to lead to a job you want, right? So if you want to be a lawyer, go to law school. That's the easiest example. But, you know, if you want to go work in consulting, an MBA might help you a lot. If you want to do these certain things, but a really good way to do that is look into the job descriptions, right? If an MBA or a master's is commonly occurring in the job descriptions for the roles that interest you, and it seems almost ever present, I would maybe try to do some informational interviews with people in the industry, see if that really is a requirement, and then I'd look into it. Somebody asked about resume templates. Katie has hopped off. If you email info@boots2books.com, Tom, if you don't mind throwing that in the chat, we can get you over a decent template. I would say the template matters less than what's on it. Focusing on targeting it to the role, giving some quantifiable impacts, is a lot more important, but we can give you at least a template that isn't super bad. One book or podcast, I'll throw that to Nick. Recommend paying for a career coach. I wouldn't say at first. I think there's a lot of people willing to give you free advice. Look at Veterati. Tom, if you could also throw that link in. Veterati is a free place. You can get a mentor online. You sign up, talk to anybody in basically any role, and they can give you really good industry specific insights, and it costs you $0. Los Angeles is expensive. To whoever said, can you work at an entry level role in LA? I'd say New York, SF, Boston, a lot of these cities are going to be really expensive. There's places you can live outside the city or some more affordable options in the city. It's not impossible. It just takes a plan. Okay, I tried to do that in 60 seconds. Whew. Nick, thank you so much for coming on, man. I really do appreciate it. I know that your time is valuable, and I'm sure that you are wildly busy, and it's also a Friday night. So the fact that you're here supporting the military community, it really does mean a lot. And it's great to see you here. I'd love to hear about your journey, your day-to-day, and what you deem pertinent.
Sure. Yeah. Hey, everyone. My name is Nick. I was in the Marine Corps, originally enlisted. I did a year of undergrad, dropped out, enlisted as an intel specialist, and then picked up an ROTC scholarship, went back to school, and then commissioned as an officer. And I spent about a little over 6 years as an officer, and then cut ties and made a hard left coming out of the military. In the Marine Corps, I started off as a comptroller, a finance officer, went on a float, hung out on a boat for a while. That was fun. Did some straight leadership stuff at Parris Island as a series commander, water survival instructor, just all sorts of weird stuff. And then I decided that I wanted to go to law school. And so I went to law school in Chicago, got my MBA at the same time, and then always knew that San Diego was going to be home. So that's where I landed. And so here I am as an attorney in San Diego. And it's been sort of a wild ride, but I do want to echo a whole bunch of, what I've heard today, backwards planning. I knew that I wanted to come to San Diego, and I knew that I wanted to be an attorney. And so, years ahead of time, it was a long journey, right? Law school is 3 years. And I knew that I had to take tests beforehand, and I knew I needed to look at getting a job. And so where I am today is no fewer than, 5 years or 6, 7 years maybe of planning to get where I am. And so sometimes it just takes time for sure. But so let's see, I'm an attorney. I do not go to court. I am a total business corporate attorney. I cannot give you legal advice about speeding tickets and things like that. I mean, I could, I won't, but I can. What I really am passionate about is small businesses. So I worked at a big law firm in San Diego and did all sorts of stuff for big companies. So helping with IPOs, I was public company counsel, doing a lot of big, hundreds of millions of dollar deals. And it was just, it was great for gaining experience. And, sometimes you got to put your dues in, which can be really challenging after going through, starting at the bottom in the military, your private PFC, work your way up, and then jump ship and start right at the bottom again. So it's pretty, it was a pretty humbling experience. I never thought I was, I knew what I was getting into, I guess is what I'm saying. But being on the small end of things and really doing these huge deals, I felt like I was just another butt in a chair, like banging on a keyboard. And so I'm in the middle of a transition now from this big law firm looking to go in-house to a company and help in an in-house legal team is sort of where I'm going for. The thing that really got me excited when I was at the big law firm was my pro bono practice, which was almost exclusively focused on small business owners, micro entrepreneurs. I tried to focus on the veteran community here in San Diego and assist where I could. And so that really is the passion that I found. And that's what I'm trying to carry on going forward. As an attorney at a big law firm, specifically, my day-to-day was wildly unpredictable. it was fire drill after fire drill. And some people love it. I think long-term for me, it wasn't for me, just because, sort of echoing some of these other values that people have. I have a family, I have 3 kids, a spouse that I genuinely like and love, and I like to spend time with them. And some roles they pay a lot of money and they take a lot. And so for me, money was important at the beginning of my transition, and now not even close. When I saw sort of what I was giving up for some of, these high paychecks. So anyways, here I am as an attorney. And I think one piece of advice that I pretty unanimously give to every person I talk to who's transitioning, either going into a school, higher education environment, or applying for a job, interviewing. I am a big proponent of bringing your genuine self to whatever it is. So if you show up to an interview and so we had this weird etiquette instruction when I was in school, and what they had said, this was like 5 years ago, and I still remember this. The woman said, hey, some law firms are really old school, so the women should wear skirts and should not wear pants. And I immediately was like, well, fuck that shit. I'm not wearing a skirt, but like, that's fucking bullshit. Sorry, excuse my language. But like, I was like, no, you can't, that's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And so that sort of has evolved into this one piece of advice that I just tell everyone. I was like, be who you are, bring yourself to this interview. If you pretend to be someone else and they hire you, they're thinking they're hiring this other person, and it's not you. They're not going to be happy. You're not going to be happy. So bring yourself, everyone's got so many great qualities. Everyone's super unique. So be your unique self and bring that to the table. And you're going to find something that fits the mold eventually. So, yeah, I think that's sort of my background. And feel free to reach out on LinkedIn. I've gotten some invites already, but if you have any questions, you want to talk about law school, you want to talk about business school, you want to talk about going into higher education with a very subpar undergrad degree, I'm happy to chat. But yeah, reach out.
That's awesome, Nick. I think something that was really cool that you brought up is even once you found your industry or industry that really interests you, there's more that you can do even into that, right? So you were at the big firm, and then you realize what you really like doing is helping the small businesses and doing some of the pro bono work, which I think is really cool, because even within your industry, you can find things that you're really passionate about, and which drives you even more, which is pretty awesome. So that's really cool. And I actually might end up reaching out to you at some point about graduate school. So cheers. Thanks for that. Yeah, I'm curious, how was your experience in law school? Did you find it with the experiences you had when you got there? Did you find that you were better prepared?
Yeah. So law school is terrible. It's super, super challenging. It's really intellectually just rigorous. And it's just because it makes you have to think in a different way. And that's sort of the whole point of law school. But going towards what, Lisa mentioned this earlier about having your priorities really clearly defined. And this was something that really helped me when I was in school, where I had, my first goal of being in law school was to keep my family together. I didn't want to divorce my spouse. I didn't want to lose my kids. That was my number one priority. My number 2 priority was landing a job in San Diego. My number 3 priority was whatever it was. Like, the fact was that when you have your priorities, and it takes a lot of self-reflection, figuring out really what your true priorities are, when you have them clearly defined, it does make your decision-making process a little bit easier. So you can say, hey, I need to study for this exam, for example, in law school, but it's my spouse's birthday. So my priority is first my spouse and my kids, and then school. And so for me, I was like, well, yeah, I'm going to dinner with my spouse. Easy day. If your goal is to make sure that you're, going to the gym, and your buddy's like, hey, let's go to the bar, and you're like, well, actually, my priority is going to the gym and then friends, it just makes your decision-making process easier. So I think just having sort of grown a little bit in my own personal development when I was applying to school and trying to really understand what my priorities are, it made that process a little bit easier while I was in law school than maybe for some others.
Sweet. No, that makes complete sense. And I really appreciate, again, you hopping on, especially on a Friday night. If you want to bill those hours, you can send them to Tom Gill. It's the guy right below me. No, I'm just kidding. I really do appreciate it, though. Those were really good insights. And I, once again, I really appreciate your time, and I'll look forward to connecting and hopefully having you at another event soon.
No problem. Feel free to reach out, everyone.
So much. Okay. We have two fantastic speakers left who are kind enough to give us some of their time to stay on through the whole event, to give thumbs up when we said something that was actually right versus the rest of the things we've said. And so we really appreciate it. I want to just echo this sentiment with every speaker. I mean, it's Friday night. I'm not sure where exactly in the United States you are right now, but if you're not on the West Coast, it's even later than it is for me, and it's late here. So I really, really appreciate both Christy and Lindsay, you guys, for staying on. It's really amazing of you. And so we'll try to round it out well. To the attendees who have stayed on, we appreciate you too. Before the event ends, I'm going to do a giveaway after Christy shares to follow on Michael's amazing work. But I will talk with Lindsay now. Lindsay, please steal the mic from me, get it out of my hands. I'd love to hear about you, your role, what you enjoy about it, how you got there, anything else you think deserves to be shared.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. So just to start off, tell you a little bit about how I got to where I am today. So, in high school, both my parents never graduated high school. I was the first one to go ahead and graduate, and I was figuring, okay, what am I going to do now? Well, I decided to, like every smart human being, join the Marine Corps. And figured that was a great way to go ahead and at least get some money to pay for school. So I was able to go ahead and get my degree kind of a little bit while in, and then also after serving, went ahead and got my undergrad in psychology, started taking those, really thought I was going to be a psychologist, realized that was a lot of work, not exactly what I wanted to do, but I found organizational psychology really interesting, which really kind of falls in with understanding, human resources, understanding people in an organization. Really fell in love with it, decided that I wanted to go try it out. But when I got out of the military, and I think like a lot of people have already talked about, is I kind of fell into that imposter syndrome. Didn't think that what was I going to do? Was I good enough to do anything? I'm starting off from scratch. This isn't fair. All my peers that were, went to high school with me are way advanced, in their careers and in school. So I actually took a tour guide position at some random haunted attraction here in Louisiana, and trying to just figure out what it was that I was going to do, working minimum wage, not really happy, not really being able to support my family. Then going ahead and kind of moved around a little bit, moved different states, figured out that, again, HR was really where I wanted to go, was able to kind of work from the ground up. So not sure where in HR you want to go. If you don't know too much about HR, there are so many opportunities within HR, not just recruiting. So I was able to become kind of like an assistant and figure out what each area did and where would my talents really be best suited. Really found out it was more in that talent acquisition space, and that's kind of where I started. Once I figured out what my passion was, I still had some time left on my GI Bill, so I went ahead and got that MBA. And really kind of help set myself up for success. But so now what I do is I am a talent programs partner at Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Louisiana. And my primary role is to recruit for interns within our organization. So you may think that all we do is sell insurance. Well, I'm here to tell you that I know nothing about selling insurance, obviously. And most of our organization does not. Actually, our most commonly used job title at Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Louisiana is a software engineer. So that may be surprising. But, I was really lucky and fortunate enough to really be able to use my skills. So when I first came out and did a resume, I realized that I knew nothing about resume building, resume writing. But what I did is I found a mentor, someone that was really successful, not in necessarily HR, but a successful professional within the industry. And so I felt that I was able to trust this individual. She kind of gave me some advice on what things to put on your resume, what things to not put on your resume, and really went from there. And so I'm able to not only recruit for interns, which is something that I love to do, and I attend career fairs and also facilitate professional development courses for them. But I'm also able to use my background as a veteran to recruit for other veterans into the organization. So I primarily work with our veteran recruitment outreach strategy, which has been my baby. And in my spare time, if I have spare time, that is, I'm also the co-chair of our veteran ERG, so our veteran employee resource group. So I'm able to help provide, resources, not only to our veterans, but their families as well. When it comes to things like PTSD, when it comes to employment, professional development resources, and really help build that camaraderie, because we have that camaraderie, right? And when we're in the military, we're a band of brothers, brothers and sisters. And sometimes when you get out, you kind of feel lonely, you feel lost. And so these employee resource groups are really there to help bring that together. And so I'm able to do what I love every single day. So getting up and doing the same thing every day has really been enjoyable for me. And so I guess talking about now, like some advice that I would give to, individuals who are job seekers. The first thing I would probably tell you to do is to update your resume. Constantly keep that updated. And not only that, us as military members and veterans, we understand that jargon. But civilian, and if you're looking at an organization, hopefully they do have a military recruiter if they're lucky enough. But sometimes they don't. So really understanding how to translate your military skills into a way that a civilian can understand, I think, is crucial, because they don't understand what commands are, especially like if you were, talking about a squadron, if you're talking about certain skills that were only applicable in whatever branch of service or MOS that you were in, they're going to pass you up, or chances are they're going to pass you up because they just don't know what you're talking about. Also do your research when it comes to an organization. So obviously we all joined for whatever reason, and so I felt that after serving, I really needed a higher purpose in order to feel fulfilled. And so I was looking into an organization that could kind of meet those needs. So for me, that was Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Louisiana, and specifically what I do. So, don't be afraid to do your research. Also talk to recruiters, talk to professionals within, those organizations and those industries that you're interested in to really help fill in some of those gaps that you might have that you just can't get, just because you're doing some of these research. Don't be afraid to, if you have not, create a LinkedIn and to update it. Don't simply put your job description, that's not necessarily the best thing, but also highlight your skills. Highlight what you're interested in. Follow these organizations, follow these recruiters. Don't be afraid, don't be intimidated by that. We want you to connect with us. We want you to connect with these hiring managers that you're interviewing with. And I feel like I'm beating a dead horse in saying this, but network. That is going to be crucial. I think they mentioned before there was 80 something people here attending. Connect with each other. You can learn from each other. You can pull each other's resources. And I think that's super important. Please don't be afraid to connect with us, the panelists today. And just don't be afraid to get out there. I think I saw some questions and just kind of in the comments in the chats, kind of talking about different skills. And, if you don't have experience or you don't have the degree, well, a lot of times, especially if you're looking for a military friendly organization, which hopefully you are, they often put in their job description, so many years of experience can be used in lieu of, and oftentimes they will say military experience. So definitely take a look at that. Don't sell yourself short just because it says that you need a bachelor's degree. Well, you may have 4 years of experience doing, that type of work. And
that's really, those were really, really great, great tidbits of information. And really, I think you're not beating the dead horse at all. I think it's really great to hear, especially from a recruiter, that how essential networking is. It took me a really long time personally to learn that. And even longer to actually start putting the effort forth to network in the context of the role I wanted. A question I had for you is if an individual wants to go engage a recruiter, especially because they're interested in their company, the roles they're recruiting for, what do you think the best way to do that is? And kind of what's the polite way to connect and also show your interest without, obviously, we recognize how busy you are. So what would be the best way to do that?
I find a few different ways. So obviously LinkedIn, don't be afraid to message them on LinkedIn, ask them a little bit of information, ask if you can set up a time that is convenient for the recruiter and yourself to really do some exploration in terms of a career. Also, a lot of times organizations may have their recruiters, so not just one recruiter, but kind of all the recruiters out there. Don't be afraid to email them, or they have like a general inbox that these emails can go to. They'll go ahead and connect with you. And again, I think also it's important to go ahead and send your resume. So, when you're having these meetings, that you guys really have something to discuss instead of just tell me about yourself. There's something there tangible that they can at least start off with.
Definitely. Yeah, that's super helpful. And, I think that, you said don't be intimidated. And I think that's the great way to put it. I mean, you're hearing it right now. Like, don't be intimidated, make the connection. Honestly, even if you come across the worst recruiter in the world, which by the way, is not anywhere close to this Zoom call, these are amazing people. The worst thing they can say to you is no or not respond. And that's much less bad than just not exploring your dreams or not looking for an opportunity. So yeah, that's really awesome. Lindsay, I really appreciate you coming on. And also all the support you've shown Boots to Books and military community. I mean, it's just awesome.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
So much. So last, but definitely not least, also to give a quick SpinSys plug before I kick it off to you, Christy's company was kind enough to give us 13 laptops about, 3 weeks ago now. And we've been getting pictures from students in the military community who didn't have laptops. We're doing every single assignment either on a friend's computer or at the university's library. For anyone who's ever tried to complete some tedious schoolwork or even like email, having to borrow a computer or go somewhere every time you want to use one can be exhausting. I mean, it just makes school exponentially harder than it has to be. Thanks to SpinSys, 13 people don't have to do that anymore. They got computers shipped right to their house. And they also were setting the Boots to Books logo as their background. Might have been the coolest thing I've ever seen. But thank you so much, first to SpinSys, and then second, for initially connecting with us, because I know we had chatted a long time ago. You've helped with hiring things, you've helped with resources. It's just great to have you as a partner and I guess is a resource. But I'd love to hear, I know you've had a couple different careers, right? You said you had done some sales work, you're in HR now. I'd love to hear about your career journey, some advice you have for job seekers and anything else you want to share.
Yeah. So I'm a recruiter, like other recruiters have talked about on the phone already. So I'm not gonna really talk about that. I'm kind of first of all, just to plug networking before I start talking, I met Peter on LinkedIn. Like, I don't know if he messaged me or I messaged him. I forget what had happened, but we just messaged. One of us connected and messaged each other and was like, hey, I think we could help each other out. Cool, let's help each other out. And I've gotten like 3 or 4 hires from him where we hired transitioning military members that he introduced me to. And we've worked with, giving laptops away. So right there is the power of networking from a random message out of the blue. But me personally, let's talk about myself. I'm very interesting. I am the queen of like not knowing what to do. I always have a plan and I never can go through with it. So I started my career, like I was a psychology major because I wanted to be a psychologist. Then I went into sales. Then I thought I would be into HR. So I like ran up that career ladder. I was an HR director. And then I woke up one day and I was like, you know what? I hate this. I want to change again. So I've changed careers. I've changed industries. I've worked in healthcare. I've worked in education. I've worked in executive education. SpinSys is an IT company now. Like I've run the gambit. And all I can say is like changing careers, changing industries, doing that every time I do it feels like the biggest thing in the world. It's super scary. And I promise it's going to be okay. And there's nothing like, I loved Nick's advice for being your authentic self. I'm my authentic self 100% of the time, all the time. And I think that that's great and, really allows me to connect with people, which I think helps me in the recruiting space. But aside from aside from my journey and like what I did, if you were really bored and you want to look at my LinkedIn and my work history, go for it. But the skills that like the reason why I think what I did is really important, and why I think I landed where I landed with a company that I love, in a career that I love, doing, you know, what I love right now, is I did some advice my dad taught me, which my dad was a Marine. He's buried in Arlington now. Really just like my ultimate hero. And he told me when in one of my many career changes, to write down the things that I like about my job and the things that I don't like about my job. And then to go through and think about my day-to-day and what would be either a job or a career or something you like that fits into that, and then talk to people. So that networking thing, ask them what their day-to-day is like and see what you like in there. And I've done that so many times and changed my mind so many times, and every time you do, it's a-okay. And I think every time I've done it, I've become like happier and happier and happier. And I think that it's one thing to have a career and follow that career for your whole life. And I think that that is wonderful, and you're blessed if you get the opportunity to do that. But don't be afraid of failing, and don't be afraid of switching. And even though it's scary, like it's not the end of the world, and you're going to be fine. So bit of advice I have. One is, again, just to reiterate, network. Be your authentic self. And I would also just say to try and be as positive as you can in those scary situations. In that interview that person calls you and you're like, I have imposter syndrome. I don't know if I can do this job. They're asking for a bachelor's degree and I don't have that. That's okay. Like, be your authentic self, talk about your skills, and try to translate them into something that's meaningful for the other individual. And that positivity thing can be hard, especially when you feel like you're applying to so many things and getting so beaten down. And I just need everybody to know that I keep a Google Doc every time I change careers about how many jobs I applied to, who the person is I talked to, the company website. And my longest one is 237 jobs. So I applied to 237 jobs before I landed one. And so this is coming from somebody that is like a professional at changing careers. It is okay, and don't get discouraged, because like you got this.
So yeah, and I guess I think you touched on it, but just to put it kind of in a neat little box and put a bow on it for people changing careers. I know the networking's huge. What would you say, you know, aside from networking, reaching out? I guess twofold question actually. One, what's your advice for people switching careers? Just to put it in a nice bow, and it's right there. And then also, when you're networking in that industry you're trying to switch in, what are a couple suggestions you have for reaching out to folks, asking them questions, just the general networking part of it?
Yeah. So advice for switching careers, I would say, is to look at the similarities of your past job or your current job and what you're doing, and how those translate to your new job, and putting it in a language. So reading things in job descriptions and talking to people in the industry to put it in a language to make those seem like very relevant things on your resume. So when I switched from being an HR director to being a recruiter, I did very little recruiting as an HR director, but I did a lot of networking with people. I did a lot of partnerships. I managed a lot of different departments and things like that. And I was able to word that in a way that showed how I could manage candidates, that showed how I could follow up, that showed how I could build partnerships in those areas, which are all things that recruiters do. So that's what I would say for like resume writing and how to tweak your experience to your new role. And for networking, I would say going to as many events as you can. And I would say having the conversations and being purposeful with those conversations. Everybody knows when you're networking, you're trying to get a benefit out of it. So I don't want to say annoying, but it's really annoying when somebody wants to network with you. And then when you get on the phone with them or you meet them for coffee and they're just like, so tell me about yourself. Like, okay, like, tell me what you want. Like, do you want a new job? Do you want to meet somebody I know? Do you want an introduction? Do you we're both here for the same thing. So don't be scared to just say it. Like being polite is very important. Building trust and connection is really important, but time is also very important. So being open with what you want and what you need. Like when Peter messaged me, he was like, I think our two organizations could really help one another out. Or I said that to him. I don't remember who said what to who, but but that was how it was. We both laid it on the line, what we wanted, what we needed, and then we built a partnership, and it's been great.
Definitely. Yeah, I completely agree. And, I think there's a fine line and the right way to do it. And I think you put it right. It's a respect thing and a time thing. And it's, you don't go into, let's say, an informational interview or networking thing and be like, give me a job, right? Like,
Yeah.
but letting them know that like I'm actively seeking a job in HR or in IT because you work at an IT company. Could you tell me what makes someone competitive for that job?
Yeah. So I'll do IT because IT is a really good industry. So things I look for, we hire a lot of transitioning talent. So right now we have jobs posted they just say career transition on them because we are looking for people specifically like from the military transitioning. So you don't need to be a super great software engineer or a Java developer or, a cybersecurity person to land your first job with us. But what I look for and what you can talk about is what have you done in your spare time to learn these skills? What was your previous experience like that translates to this? So you don't have a IT job right now, but you want to get one. Are you going to a coding boot camp? Are you going to codeacademy.com and learning these things? And that ambition means so much more than the actual skills. I would rather hire somebody with no skills that has a lot more ambition and that drive to learn than hire somebody that's been doing the job for 15 years.
Definitely. Yeah. And, I think for those kind of visual people, especially like somebody who has the skills but doesn't have the desire, right? They're kind of in the middle of the chart moving horizontally, whereas the other individual is exponentially growing, which I think is the cool thing. And I've definitely realized that people coming out of the military community are good with the work ethic, with continuous development, right? Because there's never a point in the military where you know everything, right? Because right when you learn something, there's a new vehicle, there's a new weapon, there's a new SOP, new directive of some sort that you're going to have to learn, or a new size of unit you're working with. And I think that kind of carrying that over into the civilian job hunt, and once you even land a role, makes you so much more successful, which is a pretty awesome thing about the community. But thank you so much. I really appreciate both you and Lindsay for sticking through and all the way to the end. I really, really do appreciate it. Lindsay, you're in Louisiana, so is it 8 p.m. there? Oh my Lord. Christy, where are you?
Colorado, but soon Mexico. Colorado.
Oh, that's right. We have to link you up with Katie for some Spanish teaching so you're ready to go.
Yes, exactly.
Well, hey, I really do appreciate both of you, Lisa and Michael, you guys as well, for staying on all the way through. I know how busy you are. We brought you on because you're experts in what you do, and it's amazing to have you and to see your support. We really would not be able to have these events if it wasn't for people like you. I don't know the first thing about cybersecurity, project management, HR, executive leadership, the medical industry. So thankfully, we're able to share that because you guys are willing to come on and give us some of your time. So I just really, really, really appreciate you. Now, for the attendees who stuck through, I'm going to drop a message in the chat. Here's what we'll do. So I dropped my LinkedIn and Boots to Books LinkedIn. If you go connect with me, follow Boots to Books. I'll give you a second, open those pages up. Just sit here silently, awkwardly. Okay, so you've opened those pages up. If you open them up, follow, connect, shoot an email to info@bootstobooks.com. We have, I want to say 3 Lean Six Sigma green belts. We've got a Scrum Master certification just sitting in inventory right now. And I would like them to go out. So if you follow both of those and shoot an email to info@bootstobooks.com, in that email, just let us know why you want that training and which one you want. That's it. It can be 50 words. It can be 500 words, your choice. We're not going to distinguish based on length, more on why and how it aligns with your career goals. Shoot us that email. We would love to give you free training, no strings attached. Don't forget to connect with Michael as well, because he was kind enough to offer some CPO certifications up. But I'll leave that for 1 second. I'm going to answer this general question to give you a second to grab those. But otherwise, people can begin hopping off. So the question I'm going to answer while I wait for people to shoot that email and do the connections and all that is, I have a general question. I'm older and the military has ingrained the term sir and ma'am. So now it is part of my DNA. And I'm always getting told, don't call me sir or ma'am, not because of inclusiveness, but because informality. And I feel like I'm losing points in an interview or business meeting. Suggestions, please. I'll give my 2 cents, and then Lindsay or Christy, if you guys want to hop on it. I know I just thanked you, but now we're calling back. And I'd say, you know, as long as you're accounting for the inclusivity portion and how they want to be called, if they tell you that they want to be called a certain thing, and from then on out, that's what you call them, I think you're correct. I don't think you will lose points for being respectful or formal. I think just respecting what people want to be called once they tell you that. So if they say no, sir, or ma'am, or I want something else, move forward with that. But honestly, I think really being more respectful rather than less will never get you in trouble. Much like I stick to the overdressing is better than underdressing thing, right? I think it's better if you show somebody excessive respect than if you show them not enough. Christy, Lindsay, do you guys disagree at all?
No, I agree. I think, you know, as long as you're respecting, if they correct you and say, please don't call me ma'am, or please don't call me sir, and you just, you know, and you adhere to that, then that's really it. No one's ever gonna, I don't think, get upset with you because like you said, Peter, being respectful.
Right, definitely.
You definitely don't lose points in the interview for that. Like, I would rather have somebody call me ma'am, or even slip up and call me sir if I'm on the phone and I have a deep voice, than somebody calling me, you know, bro.
Right. Yeah, 100%. And I think, you know, the workforce is moving in the bro direction. So you might be the outlier calling someone sir or ma'am. Last question I'm going to answer, then we actually are hopping off. Any advice for finding out your post-military identity? I struggle to narrow down what job I want because I'm not sure who I am anymore. The mission has been first for so long and I've never been first. It seems too foreign. Yeah, I 100% feel you, and actually still feel that. We are taught to put we before me in the military. And when you get out, it's time to put yourself before the general whole. And it's really, really hard to do. So here's what I would suggest. And I've actually fought this battle myself, is I look at a couple things. One is what interests you, and that's going to be hard to find out. So just look broadly, right? Do you like solving difficult problems? Do you like talking to people? Do you like helping other people achieve their goals? Start at the macro level, right? So let's say I really like, you know, solving complex problems. You think of yourself as a quantitative kind of analytical person, right? Then start looking at what careers that could possibly align to. So like, you know, banking, doing things in consulting, whatever is more on the quantitative side, or operations. You could get in some really technical operations roles that allow you to do that. But I think starting at the macro level of what interests you, and then starting to research different jobs. And how I'd research different jobs is this. I would first go on the internet, right? And if you identify a job that even sounds somewhat interesting to you, I would find all the information you can on Google, everywhere, and just write notes about what you think is important and what you're still curious about. Once you've done your independent research, and I'd look for better sources than, you know, like Wikipedia, I'd look for maybe like some industry professional sites, go on Veterati and schedule informational interviews. Veterati is literally built because people want to give you their time. Like I have a Veterati both user and mentor account. And I'm overjoyed when somebody books time with me to talk about like starting a nonprofit or something. Like it's one of the best texts I could possibly get, is that somebody wants to talk for that long and listen to me go on tangents. So I'd go on Veterati and use that to weed out some of the careers that might not interest you. Ask people, what do you do every day? What interests you about the industry? Why are you still in that role? What makes someone successful? What skills do you employ? And that really will help you start narrowing it down. But I think the biggest thing and the overarching thing is, even outside of narrowing down roles, is trying to put yourself first now. And it's tough to do. It really is, but it's also an amazing thing. So in the military for so long, you had no individuality, you had no self-determination, no ability to say, this is what I want to do and how I want to do it. You have that now, and it's daunting, it's terrifying, but it's also amazingly rewarding. When you put the work in and you find the role you want and you network with people, you'll get a couple of things. You'll get to meet awesome people, like how I've met all the people sitting on this panel now, which is amazing. And you'll realize, wow, these are actually pretty great people. And two, you'll find a role that makes you really happy and likely treats you better and gives you better opportunity to develop yourself than the military did. And so it's hard finding your post-military self. It's going to require a lot of work, a lot of conversations, but it's also probably the most rewarding thing you can possibly do. I know that was somewhat tough to decipher and likely move forward on. I'd be more than happy to talk personally too. I don't have your email. You shot that to Tom. If you want to connect with me on LinkedIn and drop me a message, we can do a phone call whenever. We can shoot back and forth with ideas. I'm more than happy to talk about it, but definitely fought that battle myself. You were in no way an outlier here. I think we all kind of struggled through that.
Yeah. Hey, Peter, do you mind if I jump in on that for a second? Because
Sure.
I will tell you that, you know, just myself going through this transition, trying to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up, right? And that's really what it is, right? What do you want to be when you grow up? Because again, the military has been so ingrained in you, and it's always been the team effort. That's always what it is. And the recruiters, I know you're probably going to agree with me, and hopefully you agree with me. I'm not putting out bad information. You have to sell yourself. It's about what you've done, what you've accomplished. And that's really hard to translate. I will tell you, Tom, I know he put it in there. Actually, I'm going to put a link in the chat here as well. What really kind of clicked for me was two things. One, I found a mentor through ACP, which is absolutely amazing. He helped me try to decipher the IT industry, because that was one of the fields I was looking at. The other thing that really helped me out was going to the Commit Foundation. Now this has no association between, this is just something that I've used. So Peter, sorry. But they have this amazing course that you can take through this organization, and it's Find Your Purpose. And really, it asks some very hard questions about what you want to be when you grow up. And it's more along the lines of not finding the skills that equate to a civilian job. It's more along the lines of, what are your hobbies? What are your interests? What really sparks your ability to wake up every single day because you're interested about X news article that's going to come out? And when I finally went through that, I realized that I have three diverging fields that I really enjoyed. It was IT, cyber, project management, and then the space industry. And really looking at all three of those, it really helped narrow down. And then, just like Peter said, just like everyone else has said here too, doing those informational interviews with those industry professionals in that field, they'll give you your day-to-day job. And don't just talk to one person. I'll give my example. 2 years trying to get ready to transition. I transitioned this year. I have done probably over 150 different informational interviews with people across all three of those industries. And it's because I really wanted to figure out what someone did at a large company that had 25,000 people, a small company that had 10 people in it, and then kind of the medium-sized company. And because everyone's a little bit different, right? An IT person at a 10-person size company, you're pretty much going to run everything. But at a large company that has, millions of people that work for them, you may only have one piece of the pie. And even that small piece of the pie, you're only going to get a piece of apple inside of it. Like, that's it. So really trying to understand what everyone does and what organizations you're trying to get into, that is going to help you out a lot. As far as the how to separate the we from me, and this is going to sound a little corny, set up your phone, record yourself talking about yourself, and then go back and watch it again. And every time you see the instance of we did this, make a checklist and like, hey, I need to shift my mind and shift my focus to I completed this task. Really, you're training your brain to reorganize how your thoughts are working, and that'll help you out a lot. That's what helped me out a lot whenever I went through and did my interview. I had just recorded myself a bunch, and it's hard. It's rough. I 100% agree. And, Peter, I know this, we've talked about this before. It's hard to get out of that we mindset, but it's something that for the benefit of yourself, to make sure that you have a steady transition without those bumps and bruises and the rocks all along the path, it'll help out a ton.
Definitely. Yeah, I completely agree. And so to round it out, I'm going to highlight what people said, and then we're ending it so that everybody can get out of here by 6 or 9 p.m. In Lindsay's case, I'm amazed the fact that you're still on this call and very appreciative. So the first, do your research, build your network, and embrace that kind of fear and insecurity that might come when breaking into a new industry. If it was easy and painless, everyone would do it. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be a little scary, but it's wildly rewarding. And I think all the panelists have had an experience with transitioning into a new industry or trying something they weren't 100% sure of, and it worked out. The last one is learn all you can, build your network, ask them 101 questions, right? If you're on a informational interview with someone, just pepper them with questions that you're curious about, because they'll see you're actually curious and you'll get good answers. The last thing is, once again, if anybody's curious about the nonprofit side, we've got a little bit of time in consulting and then wealth management. If you're curious about any of those things, I'd be more than happy to talk about them. And yeah, thanks everybody for joining. To those who submitted for the giveaways, we will have information to you by Monday if you're a recipient. Okay, sweet. Thank you guys all so much for joining. The recording will be out Monday as well. Panelists, I owe you guys the world. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, our pleasure.